Hello, everybody. This is December 26th. Welcome to the Let Me Ask a Question podcast. Our first episode is entitled Cheating Heart of a Black Man. Just tell you a little bit about the episode. This seems to be a topic that I hear a lot, or I've heard a lot in the past about black men having a problem being loyal. It's a deep narrative, but for the most part, can't be trusted, no good dogs and things like that. And of course, I'm not saying that everyone says these things, but I definitely hear it enough that it's time for it to be addressed. So, what are some of the things they say about us? Before I address that, let's talk about who is they. I would like to say women, but in all honesty, I have never heard women of another race going about black men. Maybe good, not bad. And maybe that's mostly because they don't feel comfortable having those type of conversations around or with a black man. So I would have to say mostly I've heard it from black women. And I think society at large shows us how they feel about us more so than talk about it. Like the way they treat us, the way they respond to us, it tells us the way they feel about us. So some of those things are that we're lazy. Black men are lazy, and we don't want to work, and it makes it hard for us to care for our families. That we're terrible or absent fathers. This is seen in large part, by single parent households, female single parent households, which are prevalent in our community. We can't deny that. But also just listen to a lot of black women talk about the men that they're in relationships with. And, how they are as fathers and absent fathers. Also, we're users, manipulators. There's a lot of jokes and rhetoric and memes and things about, how we're users and manipulators. And lastly, this last one, in large part, I think is almost obsolete. The down low, I haven't heard much about it recently, but it was definitely a thing in the past where black men were suspected of having relationships with other black men, but moving in a masculine way and hiding those relationships with both parties. So these are some of the things that we're definitely going to address today in the podcast. All right, so let's start it out. Why aren't we better fathers? Why are we absent from black households? I think I would be remiss if I didn't say I don't think that's fully representative today. I think there are a lot of black fathers who have shown up more recently, just following social media and things like that, and being a part of our community. I see that black men are far more involved than maybe they have been in the past, or more willing to support the black women and mother their children and things like that. So I think to say that we aren't absent today, it's not wholly fair, but I think still it is true large enough that it absolutely needs to be addressed, and addressed on the level of why it's actually happening. To believe that black men just don't want to be fathers or don't love their children, it's not only unfair, it's lazy. It's a very lazy and underdeveloped point of view. So let's dive into it. I have to edit this later, but this word I'm very skeptical about using, but I think it fully applies. Demasculinization, I believe I said that right, I'll check, of black men. So I'm going to take you back to slavery times. When the slave owners were trying to control their slaves, they took black men and they paraded them in front of black women. It was absolutely important that the black woman was the audience. And they beat them. They tarred and feathered them. For those who are not really familiar with that, is to take hot tar and pour it on the skin of the black men, and then douse them with feathers. It was like humiliating. It was extremely painful. There was even instances in which they tied them to horses and had horses move in opposite directions to try to dislocate limbs and things like that. Pretty much, black men were tortured in front of black women, black slaves. Black male slaves were tortured in front of female black slaves. Why is the question. The goal was to show the black female slave that she absolutely could not depend on the strong black male slaves in her community. Their strength was reduced to them screaming, hollering, just in pain, being tortured in front of them. So they wanted the black female slave to get the image of the strong black male slave as being weak, as being unable to care for or protect her, and unable to properly lead their family. It was very successful. It got to the point where when the female slaves had children, men, boys, they would coddle them, and they would try to make them more subservient or weaker. And if they had strong personalities or were very intelligent, they would teach them to dumb that stuff down. Why? Because they wanted to protect them from being the males that were tortured to prove a point. So the black female slave learned that she had to not only protect but coddle and teach young black men to downplay their masculinity, their strength, and their intelligence so that they wouldn't be a target. That was the goal, and they were absolutely successful in doing that. Let's talk about how that played out generationally. That carried on over into even today's society. Being as though we have single parent households, it's because black men were no longer being taught or trained or brought up or raised to be strong leaders and strong head of household. They were coddled, they were comforted, they were babied by their mothers, and they were taught to not challenge authority and things like that because they didn't want them to be targets even today. So for generation after generation, you have a watered down version of a black male. So what's happening at the same time? While the black male is being watered down, the black female is being hardened because she has to take on a role as the head of the black household now. So she has to be harder. She has to be tougher. They're actually switching roles. She actually becomes, through her sons, she actually becomes the protector of the black man. So it's totally a role switch or reversal. It was not beneficial for society for the black man to take on his traditional role as the head of household or the leader of his community, a leader within his community. I'll give you an example of that. I'm sure many of you have heard of a supportive housing social service program called Section 8. Pretty much for those of you that may not be aware of it, the gist of it is it's supportive housing for I would say poverty-stricken families or families who under-earn and don't have annual salaries that I guess are reasonable or sufficient. One of the criteria for a black family to live in Section 8 is that the father cannot be a part of that household. I'm going to let that sink in. For a black family to qualify for Section 8, the father cannot be a part of the household. That should jump right out at you. The question you should be asking is why? Because you need the father to be a part of the household for them to get strong enough and learn to earn and succeed and do well as a unit, so that then as time goes on, they no longer need those services. So it's counterproductive for the black man to not be a part of the household. That's part of the underlying scheme, and this is a social service program. That's showing us that the understanding is that if the black man is in his traditional role as the head of the household and along with his family, then that unit is going to be much more capable of getting back on their feet, being successful, and earning moving forward. These are some of the systemic ways that something that happened generations and generations ago with the stripping black men of their masculinity is something that's even being supported in today's society and systems. And it's systemic. It's put in there so that you don't see it or know it. So, okay. So these watered down version of black men who are raised and taught to be softer and taught and coddled by their mothers and taught not to be the strong, I guess, the strong men that they were designed to be, is who we are today. We're a product of that. The black men that we see on a regular basis are a product of generations of that type of thinking, that they will be protected and kept safe because they are targets for society. So it's important to realize that that's the black man that we're criticizing and judging, that is not a part of his family and is not head of the household and is not doing all the traditional male type things. Nothing happens, or I can't say nothing, but very few things happen without being trained or supported or taught. The things that we're teaching are a total contradiction to what we're asking for. We want the black man to be strong and the head of his household, but for generations we've been teaching him to be weak and subservient and not catch the eye of figures of authority who could penalize him for being strong. So on top of that, the black man is criticized by every aspect of society. Black women have opinions about us, negative opinions about us, about how we're not the type of man they need, how we're not consistent, how we're not loyal, how we're not good fathers. Society sees us as lazy criminals that want to demonize society and rape and pillage and do terrible things to white women. And generally around the world, we are seen as a criminal element. So much so that is exactly where swag comes from. Black men feeling so insecure about who they are and the way they're seen by society are put in a position where image is extremely important to them. So they always try to move in a way that's cool, collected, admired by others. Even in everyday things, the way we move and the way we do things, which equates to, as we know it today, as our swag, is a direct result of the insecurities that are put in place because how negatively we are seen by almost every aspect of society, and I'm willing to even go as far as say the world. So that swag is a defense mechanism. We can't let our guard down. We can't ever be seen as not cool and not in control and not collected, because of we know how we are really viewed as society. So that transferred into us being the coolest beings in the world. We are mimicked the world over for our swag and the way we carry ourselves. And that is a direct result of the insecurity that comes from the way we're actually seen by society. Okay, so imagine I offered you a job, and in that job you had to be really skillful. It was a very, very important job. It was fast moving, had a lot of parts, and it was high exposure. And you accepted that position, and I put you to work without any training at all. And as you learn and make mistakes, I hold you accountable for each and every mistake you make. And accountable to the point where you can't rebound from it. once you make a mistake, you become that mistake. And a stigma attached to it is who you become. How long would you stay in that job? Would you appreciate a job like that? Would you want a job like that? That's what it's like when we are trying to be what is the traditional or the true essence of a black man. It's all of these qualifications, it's all of these responsibilities. No one has ever shown us how to do it. A lot of black men have children and start families having never seen a healthy family with a father at the head of the household, or even good dads. You'd be surprised how many black men start families never having had a model of a good black father. Yet we're held accountable to the point where we're judged and criticized and made out to be these demons that just don't want to support our women, can't be a part of our community or any of these things, when the truth of the matter is, it's a job we were never trained for. We never had the experience or the support or the mentorship or all of the things that other races regularly enjoy. Many other races grow up in households where mother and father is there, and their father is the hallmark of what they work to be. If you remove the father from that situation, we're still looking for a father figure. So the things we look to is males in our community that are older. And unfortunately, for a lot of black men, we have to go to the street for that. We may have extended family members, uncles, cousins, maybe grandfather that could offer, but a lot of people go to the street. It's who is seen or held in high regard on the street. And unfortunately, there's been some unsavory characters. And these are the people, and a lot of times that we model ourselves after. So I'm going to address first the idea of no good, that black men are no good. We're charming. Don't know to what extent you can really deny that. We're intelligent. In the event that you don't want to acknowledge that the black man is intelligent, it may make you feel more comfortable to think of it as street smarts. I was a correctional officer for 7 years, and I got to work around a lot of individuals that people would consider unsavory people. Some of the most intelligent and brilliant people you'll ever come into contact with. To be put in a situation and find a way to manipulate it when you are clearly at an unbelievable disadvantage takes serious levels of intelligence. I'm embarrassed I even had to qualify black men being intelligent, but for some, I'm sure that I did. We're awesome lovers. I don't know many that would deny that. Of course, I'm not talking about every single black man, but for the most part, when it comes to intimacy and things like that, that is not something we struggle with. I don't know that I'll go as far as calling it natural, but in a lot of ways, it seems like that's something that's natural for us. Swaggy. The way we carry ourselves, the way we wear our clothes, the music we listen to, the way we eat, the way we approach life is mimicked the world over. You can travel into remote regions of the world and see people doing things and carrying themselves in ways that they don't even really understand the genesis of it. It's just they've seen us do it, and it looks so cool that they want to mimic it. Athletic. I don't know to what extent I even have to qualify this. Football, baseball, just generally the sports that we become a part of, basketball, we are dominant at them in a lot of ways. Attractive. I don't even know that I would have to defend black men being attractive. I think us dominated in the model industry and things like that, it's just, it truly speaks for itself. So with all of these positive things, when did we become no good? We became no good, or termed as no good, when we didn't fulfill expectations of the people that we're dealing with. In large part, black women. And the question then would be, what were those expectations? Well, when it comes to black women in relationships, the expectations were that we would be loyal or honest or faithful. So I asked, were those expectations fair? Of course, a lot of people are going to have a problem with that question. Of course they're fair. Loyal, honest, faithful, those are the foundations of any good, wholesome relationship. I agree with that. But let me go further. The reason I'm asking is that fair, we have to delve into each one individually. So let's do loyal and faithful. To understand a black man's ability to be loyal and faithful, we got to look at the way that, or the message that young mothers, society as a whole, and the world sends young black men messages about love and relationships. Let me rephrase that. I got a little tongue tied. To consider loyal and faithful, and black men, how loyal and faithful they are, and the way that they learn how to do that, we have to consider the way and the messages that society sends young black men about loyalty and being faithful in relationships, right? So, young black men, for the most part, are told there are a lot of young women. Take your time. Don't be too serious. And kind of explore your options. If you don't believe this, and you don't think that's the actual message, imagine an early teen, young black man, amongst a group of his peers, 5 or 6 boys sitting around, and they're talking about a young female, and they say, I heard you're talking to so and so, this young black female. Tell me about it. What's up with that? Imagine if he were to say, I love her from her head to her toes. Everything about her is special to me. I mean, she blows my mind. I can't get enough of this woman. Do you have any idea what the response would be from his peers? Do you have any idea how he would be addressed and treated beyond that? Words like whipped and just generally a sucker. These are the things that would be associated with him. If that young boy was to go to black men, he would get similar messages. If a young black man wanted to be married right out of high school or going into college, so many people will say, wait, give it a chance. Get out, see the world. There's so many women out there. Take your time. Make sure that you have what you want. Date more people. The message that we're getting at a very young age is quantity, not quality. People aren't saying to this young black man, if you get a woman that has all of these positive qualities and she's compatible with you, then you've made a good choice and capitalize on that as soon as possible. They're saying to even good ones, don't make the decision yet. There is still so many more options out there. That is ingrained in the psyche of young black men. So even in situations where we have good women, we can't get away from the idea that something better is right around the corner. And I can't commit to this one because there's a chance that there's so many other beautiful things out there that I have to be willing to see them. And that is the genesis of our problem. That affects our loyalty and faithfulness. And who are we taught these things by? Mothers in single parent households. They're telling their sons, baby, take your time, get to see these other women out there. From our cousins, from our brothers, from our uncles, from our grandpas, from our friends. Eventually we learn what we're being taught. And we carry that into relationships, and as we get older, is seen by many as promiscuous. We're called dogs and a no good and all those different things, when all we're doing is what we were taught as young men. So let's do the honesty. This is always a fun topic, and I'm sure that this is something I'm absolutely going to address probably separately in another podcast. But I always inwardly laugh when people say that they want people to be honest with them, because I'm sure they think they actually do. And some may really, wholeheartedly believe that they want honesty. But I've attempted honesty and learned quickly it is not desired. People want you to say what they want to hear and call it honesty, not necessarily honesty, regardless of how it makes them feel. I'll give you an example. So there was a period in my life where I said, you know what? I don't have my mother anymore. And she's maybe the last person I had to lie to for fear of being beat when I did something that, she didn't want. More so than beat, really, truly disappointed. For fear of disappointing her, maybe I would lie because I didn't want her to really know something that would disappoint her. But after she was gone, I felt like I didn't owe the world anything. I felt like I can be truly honest, and you do what you will with the information. So in relationships, dealing with young women, say that you're having a relationship with a young woman, and it's a physical relationship, and time is going on, and you're enjoying it. I don't want to downplay it and make it as if it's not anything, but it's just not the thing. And then the question comes up, so what are we? We're friends. Well, friends that have sex? Most friends don't have sex. Well, we're friends that have sex. So, do you love me? Honestly, I don't really know you. We had sex in such a short period of time. I don't really know you, and I already see things in you that are counter to what I want in the person that I'm with, even at a young age. So we're not really anything. But can you deal with other people? If I run into someone else that I think is worthwhile, yeah, absolutely, I'll give them my attention, because I don't think this is the last relationship or situation I'll be in. That's honest feedback. And being on the exchange of that, you're seen as an asshole by that woman, especially if she really likes you. If you're honest about the idea that you're going to continue to see other people and all of those things, and to a woman that really loves you, and you're honest or really likes you, and you're honest about how you feel about it, a lot of people can't deal with that information. Even in just being honest about what's happening, you still become the asshole, when that isn't fair. It's only when I'm trying to lead you to believe one thing and doing another that any wrongdoing comes into play. But in that exchange, you're absolutely the asshole. I'll give you another example. When I met my wife, it blew my mind how she responded to people's cooking. I'll tell you what I mean. She would eat food or taste people's cooking, and when they asked her how it was, she would be absolutely honest about how she felt. I don't like that, or I just think this is not good, or I don't think it's that great. And I was shocked. I was like, you can't say that to these people. Like, why are you doing that? What is the purpose of telling them that? And she explained to me. They asked, I'm going to give them an honest answer, because they may want to give me more of that. I don't want any more of that. Or maybe they think that their food is good because nobody's willing to be honest about or give them the real feedback. That one small situation opened my mind to the fact that we become socialized to tell people things that we feel as though they can deal with, as opposed to telling them exactly as it is and helping them to mature. It's about it's called emotional fragility. I tell you what I think emotionally you can handle. Is that fair? Of course it's not fair. It's not even right. But it's what we're taught to do, because if you give honesty, and depending on how honest you're trying to be, or how honest you're willing to be, I mean, it can really have negative effects. Like, people can really term you and decide that you're just an unforgivable asshole, when all you're trying to do is be absolutely honest about how you feel and call a situation for what it really is. So I think when it comes to honesty, men learn to tell women what we believe they can handle. It's not right and it's not fair. But again, it's what we're socialized and we're taught to do. And then when the truth comes out, because it always does, we're liars. And you can't believe anything we say. And you can tell that we're lying because our lips are moving and all those different things we say. When the truth is, we were taught to put people's emotional fragility above the absolute truth. And not even just men. I think a lot of women do it on a large scale too. And they're not willing to be, or maybe not as readily willing to be honest about it. So a woman can say, I'm honest with you. I told you how I feel. You told the gentleman that you like and you're interested in how you feel. Were you all the way honest with the ones you weren't interested in? Did you tell them exactly how you felt and why you felt that way? Did you give them honest feedback so that they could learn and grow and maybe become better for the next person? We ghost them. We make fun of them. We do all of these things because we don't know how to really handle honesty. I just don't think it's fair that as a black man, we take the brunt of that shortcoming when it's something that we're taught and it's learned across the board, not just with black men. Okay, this one always blows my mind, and I hear it and see it far too often, and it's hard to address. Actually, it's not hard to address. It's hard to accept or even hear a black woman say, "You know what? I just am not interested in him. He's just too nice." Blows my mind. The idea of a man being too nice. Okay, let me back off of that and approach it from another way. If he's too nice, then I have to assume that you want someone who is less nice or not nice. Well, the thing with not nice is there are things that go along with that, right? So, not saying that men who are not nice to women are bad people. They're products of their environment. They were in an environment that was maybe not nice to them, and it taught them that is not something that is rewarded, but it is something that's actually taken advantage of. So they harden it and they become something else. But that niceness is replaced then with something else. Later on, I hear women complain about the things they're replaced with. Okay, you got a man, you didn't want a man, he was too nice. So now you got a man that's not nice. And he's overly aggressive, or he doesn't respect you in certain ways, or he isn't thoughtful, or he isn't caring, or he isn't compassionate. Those are usually traits of nice men. And you clearly stated that you didn't want nice. It's an unrealistic expectation. And men are left in limbo trying to determine how much is enough and how much is too much. That we eventually become something that we can't really argue with as far as not being the most respectful or not being the sweetest or not being the most compassionate. But those things aren't always rewarded. I'll give you an example to help you understand. So I went to one of my good friends, I'm still friends with to this day. He grew up in North Philadelphia. And we were going to some parties that he knew of in North Philly. And during that time, that was a big deal for me. Like, I had never had many interactions with North Philly, so I was totally enamored by, North Philly and everything that came along with it at that time. So, we get into this very popular bar/club, and I'm like a kid in the candy store. I get in and I see all of these beautiful women, all different types and shapes and sizes, and I'm just ready to enjoy my night. So I grew up in a family where I'm taught be respectful to women. Sisters, 5 sisters, a mother who didn't play, aunts who didn't play. I was taught you don't touch somebody without them wanting you or consenting to that touch. And you're absolutely respectful to women. So I'm approaching women like, excuse me, miss, can I talk to you? Or, is it okay if I'm trying to come across in a respectful way? And I'm getting no traction at all. I mean, I'm like, look, I know I look good. I know I smell good. Why am I not winning in here? And my homie was like, because you're doing it wrong. He was like, let me show you. So there's a very attractive female walking by, very desirable. He grabs her by the back pocket of her jeans and pulls her over to him. And she giggled and laughed and said, "You're so crazy," and got right in his face, and they start interacting for the next couple hours. They're exchanging numbers. They're getting to know each other the whole nine. That blew my mind. I never would have approached a woman like that because of the way I was raised. But I changed a little that night. I learned that maybe the totally respectful, honorable way that I was taught to treat women isn't the way that all women want to be treated. And not only do they not want to be treated that way, they don't respect that way. They respect aggression and to a certain level. Well, you become a scale trying to balance how much is too much and how much is not enough. And you come out somewhere in between. Like the idea that a man is too nice makes men believe that the things that they may have heard about the way women want to be treated is not so much true, and then we become something else, only to be criticized and spoken badly about later on. Us being too aggressive, or us being too hands-on, or us being too physical, when we were absolutely taught that there are women that desire that. All right. I'll be wrapping the section up, but he's too old to be playing those games. What does that even mean? To say that somebody's too old to be playing games is to believe that their chronological age matches up to their emotional intelligence. It doesn't work like that. 365 days passes, and the only thing that happens is you get 1 year older. That doesn't mean throughout the year you've processed your experiences, you learned from them, you grew, and you became a more well-rounded, better person because of it. People don't naturally grow like that. Some do. Many don't. So a lot of times you have older men with gray hair in their beard, and they're up there in age, but they still have the mentality of a 19-year-old because they just haven't processed through situations and learn from experiences to become better people. Not many people do work on themselves. Most time they accept that the things that happen that go left or because of other people, and they never really take the time to grow and become themselves. So the idea that somebody's too old to still be playing games only says to me that you don't really understand the human makeup and the way we psychologically move. You have to find someone that understands emotional growth, that understands how to process situations and talk through them and learn through the things that happen and learn from the things that happen to them. Not many people can do that. Leads me to another conversation I had with an ex of mine, and I did some undesirable things in our relationship. And if she would have asked me as a young man this question, I probably would have lied and tried to make it her fault in some way. But she had the wherewithal to ask me as an adult, why did you do the things you did? And my answer to her was, I grew up on you, unfortunately. You met me at a point where I was a kid and I didn't know the ramifications of the things I was doing. I didn't know how it affected people. I didn't know how serious they were. I took it all for granted because I just didn't have the experience. Unfortunately, I learned on you. And when I saw how these things affected you, it showed me how serious they were. It showed me how they were unacceptable, and it's just not fair to do that, especially as I experienced some of those things that I have done to me. Sometimes that's the most educational thing you can experience, but it takes life experience for those things, and it takes life experience to be able to learn from and process that. And then it takes the cognitive ability, because some people can go through a situation 10, 20 times and still not learn anything from it. So it's not as if the things that I did because it was a malicious thing for me to hurt you or demean you or make you feel less than or anything like that. I was a kid learning and growing, and you just happened to be the person that I was learning and growing with. So, emotional intelligence, becoming a student of self, these are not things that everybody naturally take on. Or not things that people naturally take on, unfortunately. And as a result of it, we become the people in relationships that hurt people and do some pretty terrible things. So there was a joke, and I'm being real generous calling this a joke. And it goes something like, be careful, ladies. Winter is cuffing season because it's cold outside, and these black men need a place to live. I find that very derogatory and insulting. I find it short-sighted. And again, I think it's a very lazy opinion. Because what if I told you that you're supposed to use the person in a relationship that you're in a relationship with? What if I told you that healthy relationships is where you learn to use each other? And I'm going to take that word out because it's the word that you have a problem with. I'm going to replace use for support. You're supposed to support each other. I'm supposed to be better because I met you and vice versa. And together we're supposed to create a synergy that propels us both forward and makes us better people. And that's going to be a large part of our bond. The idea that you can't help me or you can't support me or you can't do things for me is part of the miseducation that we have been given. The idea that if you support a black man, then you're being manipulated or you're being used or you're being taken advantage of. When other races support and help each other regularly. Do you think that a white woman who is from a family that has a company business wouldn't insert her husband into that business for him to be financially stable and successful? It's only when it's black on black does it become something embarrassing, and it's a letdown, and it's a disappointment that a man may need to be supported by a woman. It's done all of the time. It's healthy. So I'm going to read this verbatim because I want you to hear this and I want you to understand it. This is their thought process. So this is part of their diabolical plan to weaken us as a unit. I will break him in front of you. Going back to the slave times where the strong black men were broken and embarrassed and taught the black female that she couldn't depend on them. I will switch roles to make you the protector. A role that's naturally not yours, that you have to adjust and change to fulfill, and that, the black man has to become less to fulfill his new role. I will assure he can't assume his natural role in his community. Keep in mind the Section 8. I don't want him in that role anymore. And then I will make you embarrassed to help him. It's all a part of the plan. It's not reasonable to feel ashamed or embarrassed or to speak badly of someone because you helped them, whether they're male or female. That's what healthy relationships do. And it's time for us to understand and realize what healthy relationships are and stop succumbing to what society, the miseducation that society has fed us for all of these years. All right, so I'm going to finish this with, I'm going to address the down low, and I'll do this one really quick. I don't honestly think this one is as prevalent, because the idea of the down low was that there were masculine gay men who were having male relationships, but then were hiding by also having female relationships. And I think the reason that existed was because for a large time in our society, gay meant flamboyant. Gay kind of made us think of the gay man who carried himself more like a woman or very effeminate, when that didn't totally encompass the homosexual man. There are some gay men who are very masculine and want to be masculine. They don't want to carry themselves as women. They want to carry themselves as strong black men, but they prefer men. And there was no place for that, which breeded the idea of the down low. Like they had to hide because that wasn't accepted. But I feel like society in this one way has come a long way, and the LGBTQ community has grown in a lot of positive ways. So now I think it's a lot more comfortable for people to just be who they naturally are. Okay, I got a couple examples with this one, and then I'll move on. So I was in a relationship. It was a new relationship, and it was someone that I cared about a lot. And the beginning of our relationship was centered on music, just a love of art, a love of music, and we both had a love of music. So, our conversation started out around songs and just sharing, different types of music and things like that. So during that time, I had a CD book, and my CD book was pretty detailed. It shows you how old this story is, because we're still using CDs. But I got in her car. She had like 1 or 2 CDs that she just kept on her seat, no book. Like it was disgusting. So I said, well, listen, take my CD book, and I'll rebuild one. I want you to be able to have good music in your car. Just, me being sweet. A couple days later, I get a call, and she's like, Adam, I want to ask you something. I said, sure, you can ask me anything. She says, have you ever been molested? And I'm like, what? Now, you got to keep in mind, I'm very secure in my masculinity, and none of those things really make me uncomfortable. So, like, the idea that she asked me that didn't send me into a tirade. I was more concerned about, why are you asking me that question? And her next question was, have you ever had any relationships with men? I said, no. But more importantly, what is making you ask me these questions? So she says, I was going through your CDs, and I see that you had Rent, the soundtrack to Rent. I said, I love Rent. Why does that make you think that I'm gay? Well, Rent is about gays and homosexuals and AIDS and all of that. And I said, those are some of the topics, in the play Rent, but it's about so much more than that. But why is it that because I enjoy that soundtrack, do those things have to apply to me? It didn't say anything about me. It taught me everything about her. You are trying to limit my appreciation for art to things that you think that I should like. That's one-dimensional. Your appreciation of art is supposed to be able to grow and move in any direction that it chooses, because it's just that. It's an appreciation for art. That was the first time that I saw the underlying mistrust that black women have for black men as far as the down low. I'll tell you one more situation to kind of support that, and then I'll leave this alone. I was working in the hospital in Center City, Philadelphia, on the psych unit, and there was a intern there, a counseling intern there, who we became fast friends. He was very funny. dope person, awesome personality. We just totally vibed. Like, we became fast friends. Every time he was there, we joking, laughing, just we really enjoyed each other's company. Well, I eventually found out he was gay. I mean, that didn't bother me at all, But your personal preferences, don't have much to do with me, or if anything at all to do with me, and vice versa. So, that didn't bother me. But in one of our conversations, and this was a point of view I was much, much younger, and it was a, very limited point of view, and I grew from it. But we were having a conversation about men and the desires of men. So I shared what I felt, and qualified it, with my experiences, and he did the same. And I made the statement. I said, yeah, but that doesn't really apply to you, because you're not all the way a man. And as soon as it came out of my mouth and I saw his reactions, I saw how offensive that statement was. And I immediately tried to take it back and apologize, but, he clearly wasn't trying to hear it. And, I tried to apologize for him for like 2 weeks until finally, he said, all right, let's talk about it. And I was like, I didn't mean that. And he was like, no, you did mean it. But what you have to realize is my sexual preference doesn't negate the fact that I'm a man. And in every sense of the word. You have to acknowledge that someone can be gay, and still be a man. So nowadays, with everyone being hyper aware of, your individual human rights to be what it is that you want to be, like, I don't think the download was something that's even still prevalent, but I thought I would address it because of those experiences. All right, are black men lazy? I think a better question is, are black men frustrated, and have they given up trying to succeed in a system that is not only not built for them, but in a system designed to trip them up in almost any way that it can. I think when you try and you make mistakes, which is a natural part of growth, our mistakes are held accountable, I say 10 to 20 times more than our counterparts, than our other racial counterparts. And when you try something and you make a mistake and you become your mistakes and the stigma is attached to it, it becomes very discouraging. And I think what you see a lot of black men who are frustrated by the system that we live in, and frustrated by the inconsistencies in that system and how it seems that is just there to hurt us or limit us. I don't think it has much at all to do with lazy. I know a lot of very hardworking, successful black men. Just every day, I being one myself. And I think the idea that we're lazy is just part of the narrative that was put in place to demonize us and make us look negative. Okay, so by this time you should have realized, hopefully you realized, that the title, Cheating Heart of a Black Man, was a setup. I'm hoping at this point it sounds as ridiculous as it was supposed to sound. The things we do are so much more psychology and socialization than our natural desire or inclination to do something. There's no cheating heart of a black man. It's people that are put in environments that, whether they realize it or not, teach them things. Because you don't know that you're being taught doesn't mean you're not learning. We are taught things by people we never even come into contact with. We're taught things by the stories that we see on the news. We're taught things by the way people respond to us. We're taught things by the way law enforcement deals with us as people. And we become something. And if we have a problem with what we are, it's not about shaming or becoming a blame game and saying that we are no good. It's about realizing the psychology and the socialization is happening underneath and addressing those things to get a real level of change. So of course, true to the title of the podcast, let me ask a question. Can we start over? Can we erase what we have been taught directly or indirectly about each other? And can we start from a place of addressing the psychology and the socialization behind the things we do and not attacking each other's character? Can we have patience for each other as we learn to undo some of the things that have been done to us, and we replace the miseducation with truth? That's the real question. Not what is happening in the cheating heart of a black man, but can we start over and address what's really happening? Thank you, guys. I enjoyed putting this episode together for you. I will soon be releasing a video to let you know what's up next. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to comments. Thank you.